All-you-can-eat buffet employees, what is the most disgusting display of gluttony you've seen? Pizza buffet. Dude came in for lunch buffet and ate a pretty good amount. Fell asleep in his booth for a few hours, then ate buffet again for dinner. Commentaire. I don't work at a buffet, but I was that guy. I'd been backpacking on the Appalachian Trail for a couple months. It's a 2,100-mile hiking trail that runs from Georgia to Maine, along the U.S. Appalachian Mountain Range. Been eating nothing but ramen and instant oatmeal since Gatlinburg. I was getting hungry, okay? I was having dreams about meat. So my friend and I hiked down from the trail to this tiny town, Catawba, Virginia, that only has one restaurant, all-you-can-eat fried chicken. We walk in, we sit down. A waitress brings us a platter of fried chicken and a basket of homemade biscuits. And whenever we start running low, she brings another platter. It's not like most buffets, where the food's crappy and watery and sugary, but at least it's unlimited. No, it's the asterisk best damn fried chicken asterisk I've ever tasted. Crisp and juicy and greasy and just perfect. Me and my pal gorge on fried chicken. Eat at least 5 pounds each. I'm starting to feel very uncomfortable, so when the waitress shows up with the next platter, I wave her off. She clears the table. And then she comes back carrying a damn blackberry cobbler. So we polish off the cobbler. It would have been impolite not to. Pay our bill, grab our backpacks from the foyer, and stand on the porch, contemplating the 1,500 climb back up to the trail. And it becomes obvious that there is no conceivable way we are climbing back up to the trail tonight. So I go back inside and ask the hostess if there's anywhere to camp here in town. And she tells me, "You're welcome to sleep in the gazebo out back." Apparently, this happens all the time. Story 2. I watched a fight break out between a customer and a manager at an all-you-can-stack restaurant. You pay for a plate, and you can take as much as you can stack on a single plate. Anyway, this guy had his plate stacked about 12+ inches high with food. As he was reaching for a serving spoon, he dropped his plate. He demanded another, and the manager got pissed and told him he shouldn't have stacked it so high. He refused to give the man a refund. He pointed to a sign that said something about paying for dropped food. Apparently, wasn't the first time this had happened. Commentaire. One of my favorite sushi places in town is $20 for all-you-can-eat sushi, but you have to pay for what you fail to eat. I don't see why all places don't have at least something like this. Edit. I'm glad to hear these places are everywhere. Also, they're not super strict. I only know the one place, but the one time we accidentally overordered and had like 12 extra pieces of premium roll, they only charged us like $4. Also, the one near me is a very nice sushi place. Sashimi, any premium roll you can imagine, and you order and watch them make it before they serve it to you. Story 3. Once witnessed a man eat 4 plates of food piled high, I'm talking southern food, so it was all fried foods, claim he was having a heart attack and clutch his chest, then let the biggest, most foul-smelling fart I have ever experienced. After he laughed about it, he continued to go back and eat 2 more plates of entrees and a plate of desserts. Edit. Should add that I'm not an employee. I was a customer. Commenter. Once had a patient tell me that her husband died of a massive internal fart. After some digging, I found out he died from a myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack. This doesn't have anything to do with anything. I just never pass up an opportunity to tell that story. Story 4. All-you-can-eat prime rib special. First round, you got prime rib, veggies, mashed potatoes. Subsequent plates, just prime rib. Guy did 8 plates. Lady came in with 2 small kids. Said she wouldn't pay for 2 kids because they wouldn't be eating. We were curious where the kids went at one point and found she was feeding them under the table like dogs. Commenter. Freaking Harrah's buffet. Me and a few of my buddies, all from Texas, had a cabin up there for a bachelor party. Party all night. Wake up at noon, hungover as crap. Head to the buffet we heard about. Duck and gorge on endless mimosas and prime rib. I think 3/4 of us threw up on sight. Story 5. Been working in a Chinese buffet for 6 years. Here's my top. Kid putting chocolate pudding in his plate, licked the big spoon used for pouring it, the one used by everybody, and put it back in the pudding. I saw him and had to change everything. Guy about 18 years old at the ice cream counter didn't have time to react and puked in the ice cream cans and on the floor. Looked at it, said nothing, and just walked away back to his table. Drunk dudes coming at around 6 p.m. They ate full plates in like 20 minutes and puked everything under their table. We had to move every client out of this big section, capacity of about 60 places, because the smell was so bad. I was the one that had to put a mask on to clean everything. Extremely fat guy brought a big bag of candies, kind of Smarties, took it out of his pocket, put a crap ton of them on his desserts, and put the candy bag back in his pocket. I was his waiter, and I think he told me about 4 times that we should have these candies in the buffet so he wouldn't have to bring his own. Old lady putting a plate full of chicken wings in her purse, probably to bring back home or something. No bags, nothing. Just bare chicken wings directly in there. A regular client asking me where was the coffee-flavored cake. We have a rotation for desserts, so that cake wasn't there that day. I told him, and he asked me if I could get some for him in the back store. After he insisted like 3x, I finally gave up and grabbed a piece in the fridge and gave him. We charged the drink, $2.50, but it's all you can drink. We see plenty of people drinking about 10 full glasses of Pepsi, and they complain when I bring the bill and we charge them $2.50 for it. Some even insisted to talk to my manager. We served takeouts, and someone came to get his order. He looked at the buffet and asked me, "Do you think I could grab something to eat real quick?" While smiling. We often get this asked as a joke, so naturally I play their game and answered, "Yes, of course." The guy literally walked over there, took an entire egg from our salad bar, ate it in one bite, then came back to pay his takeout. I had no idea what to say, and he just left like that. I probably have more, but those are the most obvious one. We have to deal with puke at least once a week. Usually kids, though. I don't even care anymore and find these situations rather funny. Edit. Just thought of another one. We have an employee who does omelets and eggs on demand, and one guy came and asked my coworker for eggs over. Naturally, she asks 1 or 2, and the guy answered 8. She initially thought it was a joke, but the guy wasn't laughing at all. She finally did all 8 eggs for him, and he ate them all in like 2 minutes. The buffet is located in Quebec City, Canada, so stop guessing random buffets around the country. First time getting gold off of a comment, thanks. I could do an ama as well one day. Story 6. Not an employee, but I once saw a really fat dude at a Chinese buffet smear ranch dressing from his wrist to elbow. Then, as he ate, he brushed the food along the dressing before putting into his mouth. Story 7. Watched a woman come in, go right to the dessert section, and pick up 4 plates of pumpkin pie. Then, as soon as more plates of pie are set out, she gets up before she's even finished eating the 4 slices she's already grabbed, cuts right in front of a kid about to grab a slice, and picks up 4 more plates. I should mention she didn't even finish them all. There were like 2 3/4 slices of pie on her table when she left. Commenter, it's pure greed. She wanted to make sure she had enough to satisfy herself and didn't care about anyone else. I work at a secondhand store and people do a similar thing all the time. They load up their cart to the brim with clothes and things they may or may not want, so there's no risk of other people buying them. And then when they finally decide, they leave the stuff they don't want scattered around the store, or they wait until they're checking out to slowly look at each individual item before telling me they don't want it as a pile of go-backs forms behind me and a line of impatient customers forms behind them. Story 8. Golden Corral employee here. Once this very big lady started crapping her pants on the way to the bathroom. The crap kept falling through her shorts on the floor, in front of the bars and everything and everyone. After going to the bathroom, she proceeded to go back to her table and keep on eating. True story. Story 9. Another non-employee, but this is a story I've shared before. Went to Golden Corral, for those not familiar, GC is the Walmart of buffets, with a friend's family in high school. Sat down with my food, they started to pray. While they were praying, and I politely sat with my head down, but my eyes open, a large, sweaty man next to me looked me dead in the eye, barfed all over the floor, and then walked out of the restaurant like nothing happened. Thanks for the gold. Story 10. I saw 2 guys get into a fistfight on crab leg night at the Chinese buffet because one guy stacked his plate about a foot high with crab legs, and the other guy wanted some of them. Commentaire. My wife took me to a Chinese buffet that offered oysters on the half shell and snow crab. She didn't like the actual Chinese-ish food, just the oysters and crab. People started to get edgy when one person would begin loading their plate with either of those items. It reminded me of old westerns, the movies, where people weren't sure who was going to draw first, so everyone got shifty-eyed. Story 11. My little brother nearly got kicked out of Orion's Steakhouse. When he was like 12, he had a crazy high metabolism and put away like 5 steaks from their buffet at once. Went to get a 6th one, and the guy grilling them up forbid him from getting another one. Manager was called. My dad got pissed. Brother got his 6th and 7th steak. Was a good night. I'm not denying that it should killed him, but I'm telling you, kid could put away food like no one's business. What's funny now is that it didn't make him fat. He's fairly skinny and in pretty good shape these days. No adverse health problems at all either. His line of work has something to do with it, I'm sure. He's a line worker in a tree trimming business. Story 12. Employee 20 years ago at a Golden Corral. This was before they had those nasty chocolate fountains. Saturday night, we put extra all-you-can-eat candy on the bar. Several times, kids would eat so much they'd barf on the bathroom floor. Commenter? I worked at a golf club where members pay $50 for a ticket to our buffet. It included panna cotta with cranberry port reduction, a steamship corned beef, Bailey's cheesecake, half-off liquor, orange and dill-glazed carrots, parsnips and beets, and more. It was pretty classy. Story 13. Not an employee, but one time at an Izzy's, I saw this surrealistically obese man. Hard to believe he could even walk. Circling the buffet same time as I was, so I couldn't help but check out his technique. He loaded his plate with mountains of all the high-carb stuff, a Matterhorn of macaroni salad, that kind of thing. Then he got another plate that he loaded up with the JoJo potato wedges, went over to the dessert bar and drowned the potatoes in chocolate syrup. That's when we made eye contact, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. eyes sunk deep in his fat, and they were fairly crying out, "Don't judge me, I can't help it." Haunts me to this day. Story 14. So I wasn't an employee. I was about 5 at the time, and my uncle took me to Hometown Buffet. He told me there was a trick to tell if the rolls were fresh or not. His trick was to pick up a roll, lick it, and then if it wasn't fresh enough, he put it back. Edit, no, this was not a joke. This was just the first time I saw him do it. He got away with it until I was about 16 because my aunt caught him and caused a huge scene at the buffet. Basically, my entire family would take turns walking behind him and throwing out everything he had licked. He said he could always tell if it was fresh because the outside would be moist. Also, I'm a girl, not a boy. Commentaire? People like this are far more common than I care to think about. My wife has worked in a restaurant that sometimes has a buffet, and the things she tells me the guests do is absolutely disgusting. Using their own spoons, forks to dish out the food, licking the serving spoons forms and then putting them back, sticking their fingers in things to taste them, multiple times, etc. Story 15. Witnessed a family of 4 at a sushi create multiple mountainous stacks of those lil plates on their table. Some were asterisk, chin height asterisk. Plot twist, though, they wasted a disgusting amount of it. I don't think they really understood how it worked. And were actually shocked when the waiter took a literal 10 minutes counting everything up and handed them a 400-pound bill. Was a definite asterisk. Did that just ducking happen asterisk moment. Story 16. When I worked at Olive Garden, someone had 16 bowls of the never-ending pasta. They threw up in the lobby. They also weren't huge before you ask. Story 17. My friend ran a Golden Corral in Omaha, and he told me this older gentleman, skinny guy, ate like 5 plates. And my friend kept noticing him running to the bathroom over the course of the 5 hours he was there. Eventually, he followed him into the bathroom and heard him vomiting in a stall. He was binging and purging his meal over and over again. He was asked to leave while in the stall. The guy left so fast as he seemed very embarrassed. Left a gross mess as well on the ground and back of the toilet. Story 18. Not an employee, but still relevant. When I was a kid, my mom, dad, and I would go to a Chinese buffet quite often. My dad would put a mountain of food on his plate, then never finish it. He'd then proceed to lay down in the restaurant floor and take a nap. He also did the mountain of food thing at other places like Golden Corral, but he only laid down in the floor at the Chinese place. Story 19. 7 years of pizza buffet experience. I've seen salad bowls full of ranch. I've seen huge, gluttonous Southern Baptist preachers with a stack of pizza because they're too fat and lazy to make that many trips. We had a regular who came in 2 times a week. We called him Belly Shirt Guy, who would stack a whole pizza on each plate per trip on top of unlimited pasta. His gut hung down below his shirt. Great turnaround for him, though, because he started eating salads every trip. By the time I left, the man has lost a good 75 pounds and actually looked healthy. Story 20. Not a worker, but a patron. When I was 14, I ate 7 platefuls of clams. Not just filling the surface area either, but piled high. I got so sick from the bad quality Asian buffet clams that I was throwing up clams out my nose. That was the most disgusting act of gluttony that I ever participated in. Story 21. Not an employee, but I saw a really obese lady in a wheelchair and breathing tube have plates stacked all over the table. She was going ham on a cake, but stopped to breathe really hard. Huff, 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 and then took another huge bite. Story 22. Not an employee, but I was at a Golden Corral in the South once. Walking through the line, I stopped for about 7 seconds where they had cake, trying to decide between carrot and chocolate, and someone literally walked up behind me, lightly put their hand on my waist and tried to push me out of the way. Story 23. Obligatory, not an employee. But I ate at Cece's Pizza recently with a friend, and it really made me not want to go back anytime soon. I think the highlight of the experience was an incredibly obese woman who just finished several plates of pizza. And when one of her family members mentioned she should probably slow down because of her high cholesterol, she said it was okay because she made a salad, and then proceeded to point at a bowl that was so overly saturated with ranch croutons, bacon bits, and cheese that you couldn't see a single bit of green in the bowl. As the conversation unfolded and she continued to argue her point with the people at the table, I was shocked because there was 3 major holes in her logic. 1. She assumed that by eating something healthy, it magically canceled out all the unhealthy food that she ate. 2. She believed that her ranch soup was healthy because everything with the label salad is automatically healthy. 3. She thought that just making the salad gave you all of its nutritional benefits, that you just have to appear to eat healthy to actually be healthy. She never actually ate the salad, but kept insisting that I ordered one, so it counts. Story 24. Not an employee, but a guy started shouting at me, everything around him, because I was struggling to cut a piece of pizza to put it on my plate. Was in a Pizza Hut that does the all-you-can-eat for 7 pounds buffet, and they had just brought out fresh pizzas, so everyone swarmed up and formed an orderly queue. I was at the front of the queue, and the pizza I was trying to get a piece of wasn't cut all the way through, So I tried to use the little spatula that they give you to cut a slice off this pizza for myself, which definitely isn't easy. So there I am, struggling to cut a bit of pizza with a queue forming behind me, and up walks this absolute giant of a man. He was about 6'4" inches, and, I don't mean anything bad by this, very fat. He completely cuts the queue and walks up next to me, basically burning a hole in the pizza I'm trying to cut with his eyes. At this point, the people behind me have been waiting about 10 seconds for me to cut this slice of pizza. This guy staring at me, the pizza makes me really nervous and I start fumbling even more. Trying to cut this slice, and he says very loudly, for duck's sake, how long is this going to take? People start looking over and I just look at my friend who is next to me in the queue with a deer in the headlights look. At this point, the guy's friends get up from their chairs and walk over to him and try to calm him down. Calm down, man. It's only pizza. I know it's only pizza, and that's why. I finally managed to get a slice cut off and I just rocketed back to my table. This guy is still ranting and raving about how long I took getting pizza. Here's the thing. There were at least 4 other pizzas there that he could have went for, but he wanted the one I was at so bad that he felt the need to skip the queue and then shout about how long one person was taking to get a slice of this specific pizza. Edit. A guy went nuts because I took a while to get a slice of pizza. And for everyone saying he's right and it shouldn't have taken me that long to get a slice, the pizza wasn't properly cut and I had to use one of these to try and cut off a slice. Story 25. Not an employee, but when my family was on vacation in Florida, we went to all-you-can-eat pizza place. For dessert, they had these really tasty sticky buns that were in big demand. So me and my dad are in line to get one, and once they put them out, some big guy at the front of the line literally just picked up the whole tray and walked back to his table. It was like 30 cinnamon buns. Nobody else at his table. Story 26. Not an employee, but I know someone. Let's say she may or may not be my mom. Goes in the cupboard before the trip to the buffet and grabs a handful of the big freezer bags and shoves them in her massive purse. Flash forward, we're leaving. In the parking lot, on the way out to the car, and the freaking strap on her purse broke from weight. It was closed, so nothing fell out, but geez. It's not like this family had to worry about where the next meal was coming from or something. It was more about the thrill of the hunt. Commenter. I'd refuse to go out to eat with my mother if she did that. I have a mom too that likes to argue with servers about tiny details. She's extremely picky. If she decides she doesn't like the result of what she ordered. It's not like she's arguing because there's actually something wrong with her order either. She complains if it tastes like something she didn't expect. A lot of the time, it's just because she didn't understand the menu description or read it improperly. Doesn't matter. Still the restaurant's fault. I want to shrink into the floor whenever she does that. It's difficult to sit through. Story 27. I went to a Brazilian steakhouse once. For those unfamiliar with the custom, it is all-you-can-eat salad bar, and then you sit at the table and the pass adores, or waiters if you want to be bananas about it, bring out perfectly cooked and spiced meats to your table. They ask if you would like to try some and cut you off a small portion. The pass adores pass through in rotations until you move a small place card on your table from green to red. When it's red, they pass you by, and you can eat and talk and flip back to green at your leisure. I love these places. However, they are fairly expensive, so I can only go on my birthday or special occasions. You also tend to dress a bit nicer as these are cloth napkin-style places. So, with all this in mind, there I was on my birthday dressed fairly well with my friends and family having a good meal. In the booth across from us sat a man. This was no ordinary man, though. This was a man on a personal mission to destroy this churrascaria through the force of eating. He was there before us and wore workout pants, an extra-large shirt with no sleeves, flip-flops, and I crap you not, a visor. Like one of those green visors you see people who pretend to be accountants wear. Luckily for my party, he was after us in rotation. However, he made sure to humph and grump every time a passador stopped at our table and gave a slice of deliciously cooked meat to one of the people at our table. "This crap is cold by the time it gets to me," he would complain. So the passadors altered courses and made sure to hit his table first. No big deal. After all, let this one dude get his meat before they serve our table of 6. It was no skin off our backs, and everyone in my party was fairly well fed and contemplating sending up the red flag of surrender to the men bringing us the row after row of meat. A few of us were still getting meat every now and then, but the entire party was dying down. However, the dude in the visor was still going. He was eating meat like a T-Rex, barely even chewing. He asking for double portions every now and then, swigging some choice beer. He went for the nicer imported beer. This dude was an eating machine. Now he was already extraordinary enough to have my curiosity, but this is the part of the story where he gets my full attention. He had just finished some more meat when he looked up at me, made eye contact, for what felt like an eternity. He was looking right at me, but not seeing me. His eyes were staring off and getting large. He looked panicked, stood up suddenly, rippers the visor off his head, heaves over at the waist, and covers the floor in the most impressive amount of vomit I've ever seen. The sound of the vomit hitting the floor was loud enough to overpower all the ambient conversations and noise of the restaurant. Two of the girls at my table screamed and stood up. One of my friends dry heaved. I thought for a brief moment he would sympathy puke, which would have caused a goddamn chain reaction of puke so gnarly it would have made the news. Luckily, he held it in. The manager came and several janitors followed and cleaned it up almost immediately. One with carpet shampoo, two with buckets, and one with some trays. The busboys sprayed some airbrushed, and it was as changed the table linen. All in all, good job covering up this massive biological crime scene we all witnessed. The man in the visor was moved to a table in the back. He did not leave. He simply sat down at that new table and flipped the little card from red to green. I witnessed a Roman incident firsthand at a churrascaria. Story 28. A few years back, when Golden Corral first got the chocolate fountains, I went there and was going to try it out. As I was walking up to the fountain and I started to contemplate what I was going to have, a toddler takes his drink and just pours that mother ducker into the fountain and ruins it. So anyways, the manager comes over and is going ballistic because they had just set it up for the day and now they would completely have to replace the chocolate. Shortly after, this man comes up and decides he wants some chocolate brownies, but he can't as the machine is being purged in the back of the place. So what does he do? The guy just puts his tray down and leaves the restaurant, goes to the toddler's family's car and slashes their tires. He was never caught after that. That man was a different kind of devoted that the world needs. Story 29. Had a friend who worked at the Golden Corral for college money. Most of his stories are mirrored here. Vomit, fat people, kids licking spoons. The only thing I can add is that he said fat people often don't eat much more than normal people. They just eat higher calorie portions, like drown their chicken wings in ranch soup. And that's just fine for the business because the cost of many high-calorie items are much cheaper per pound than healthy stuff. Bad chicken tastes the same as good chicken when deep fried. Cake and soft serve are mostly air. The worst, he said, were people who took food and stuffed it in pockets, purses, backpacks, or whatever for later. He said there were repeat offenders they routinely had to throw out, but they eventually came back when the management changed. They knew those places had high employee turnover. Offenders were the elderly and large families with lots of kids. Story 30. There is this place in my city that has a burger and sushi buffet. Once I ate 15 burgers and 5 plates of sushi. It was an eating competition with a friend. Edit. Each burger was around 80-90 grur, plus the buns, cheese, etc. And I'm a big dude. Story 31. I'm not an employee, nor do I frequent buffets. But my senior lunch in high school was a trip to Golden Corral. As soon as I walk in, I see a large, obese woman hunched over a table close to the buffet eating fried chicken, placing the near bare bones onto her plate, and stroking her hair back with chicken grease-caked fingers. She had a few plates stacked on top of each other with the remnants of chicken bones poking out between the plates. Commenter, I'm completely convinced that this represents like 50% of society. They're basically just invisible as long as their TV stays on. They go buy the same groceries every week, cooking the same meatloaf, fried potato casserole, and pork chops they learned to cook 4 decades ago. Then once a month, they go to Golden Corral and the world sees them. Story 32. Not an employee, but I'll share a story about someone who my mother and I once invited to go to a buffet with us. So this guy, we'll call him Mark. He accepts our offer to go to a local Chinese food buffet for takeout. I don't know if most Chinese buffet places do this or not, but at least at this place, you could get a pound of whatever food you wanted for like $5 or something like that and take it home with you instead of eating there. So the three of us split up to get what we want from the different buffet tables. And then I noticed that Mark is walking around with his little takeout box in front of his face. I walk over closer to him and I see him eating a ducking watermelon slice right there in front of the buffet. And then he sits the remains of the watermelon back on the buffet table *. So I'm like, what the heck? But I don't say anything right away. Then he walks down to those Chinese donut things and pops one into his mouth. And then he walks over to the chicken wings and starts eating ducking chicken wings and * putting the bones back on the buffet table *. So I go over to my mom and I'm like, do you ducking see what Mark is doing? And so she goes over and peeks and starts scolding him under her breath. He's like, it's fine. I do this all the time. So then mom walks away from him, pissed off. And then one of the employees walks over to my mom. He tells her that he sees what Mark is doing, and he sees that we're none too happy to see him doing it either. So if my mom tells Mark to leave, they won't call the cops. So mom walks over to Mark and tells him to leave. He actually gets offended, like we're somehow being rude to him to tell him to stop eating off the ducking buffet line and putting bones and crap back onto it. So he actually puts some stuff into his container and walks it over to the front where they weigh the food and you pay. The cashier is giving him a dirty look the whole time, but doesn't say anything. He pays for his own food, we pay for ours, and we walk out and get back in the car. So we're both like, we can't ducking believe you, Mark. We're never taking you out anywhere again. Meanwhile, he reaches into his ducking pockets and starts pulling out goddamn chicken wings from his ducking pockets. And as he does this, He actually says something like, "So what? Those chinks are out to rip you off anyway. They deserve it." My mom nearly made him walk home. She was so ducking angry. But she screamed at him the whole way back. Take a friend to a Chinese buffet for takeout. He eats off the buffet instead of putting it into his container and puts chicken bones and crap back on the buffet. Then gets angry when he gets called out on it, then blames the employees and says they deserve it. Story 33. The buffets in Las Vegas are disgusting because most people are already in a binging behavior mindset. I would see fat guys and gals loading up their plates 5 inches high. I never understood this because you can get a clean plate and get more food. It is like they are afraid there won't be any more left for them. Gross. Story 34. I don't work there, but I was once a customer at a Golden Corral in Florida, and a morbidly obese guy came in. He was as wide as the table at which he was sitting. He pulled out a bath towel and tucked it in like a napkin. This dude came to play. Story 35. Went to a pizza buffet, and the table next to us was a couple with a really chubby kid that looked around 10 or 11. He proceeded to put down plate after plate of food. Later, I went to the bathroom, and he was in the stall, puking his poor adolescent guts out. The saddest part was seeing him on my way out working on another plate. Still think about that every time I go to a buffet almost 20 years later. Story 36. I wouldn't say it was disgusting at all. At this buffet, they used smaller sized dishes. I think they read a study that said that smaller the plate, the less wasted food, and so people would just eat a little bit less. But old Butch here didn't care for the smaller plates. No, he kept stacking the food higher and higher on it. One time, he targeted meatballs. He waited until a fresh pan was brought out, and then he went to work. The meatballs he stacked like a little tower, getting higher and higher as they pushed slightly towards the middle. He had about a foot in height of meatballs. It could have been the 8th wonder of the world. Another time, he had snuck in his own plate, one that was larger than the others, just so that he could fit more on it without having to make more trips. At the end of it, he asked our staff to wash it and bring it back to him. We had to tell him he couldn't bring his own plate anymore due to potential food safety violations. Instead, he tried bringing larger paper plates instead that could be thrown out when they were done. Eventually, he was banned because the store was losing a bit of money off of him. They put his picture up in the back on a "do not serve" wall. Well, eventually, the store was sold to someone else. We removed all the other photos, but his, and I put a label on it that said "Hero." The new manager was a bit of a git, so me and another guy said that he had saved a customer's life from choking on it, which may have been possible if someone didn't chew before swallowing one of those meatballs. The rest of the old staff agreed with it, just so the man could eat into the profits of the new owners. I eventually found out that they were a programmer for Microsoft. They were just used to having to think outside the box to get more out of what tools that they had. In any event, he was a glorious git. Story 37. My wife's friend used to go to a buffet as a special treat every once in a while. He was kind of a cheap guy, so he would really pack it in on those days. Once he ate so much he couldn't stand up and needed to call an ambulance. Commenter: I once did something similar out of spite. Allow me to explain. My parents forced me to hang out with this really weird kid and his parents. Parents were nice, and the kid was nice as well, but he was never content with what he had. So, one evening, back when I was 13 or 14, after spending a day with him and his parents at the beach, we stopped for pizza. I was hungry and decided to order a large pizza for myself with my favorite toppings. I had planned to bring the rest home for leftovers. Well, I could see this kid eyeing my pizza. He didn't say it, but his eyes begged for a slice. But rather than being a decent human being and offer him a slice, I decided that it was a far better idea to eat every single slice of pizza. I'm guessing a 14 to 16 inches pizza, so he wouldn't have an opportunity to ask. Being that I was thin as a rail, my body wasn't used to ingesting a massive amount of food like this in such a short period of time. When it came time to leave, I was unable to fully stand up and was unable to do so for several hours. Story 38. Watched a lady get a to-go box and filled up the top and bottom of the under the styrofoam was about to collapse when she dropped an egg roll on the ground. She then proceeded to pick it up with her toes. She was wearing flip-flops, and place it into her box. Story 39. I was at a Chinese buffet, and a chubby dude was just quietly eating his food when all of a sudden his chair just fell apart under him and he fell straight to the floor. That dude was me. Talk about embarrassing. The whole restaurant was full of cheap furniture. The replacement chair was wobbly. I was there with my little Asian friend. He got a good laugh out of it. Story 40. At a fish and chips place, an overweight guy loaded up like 5 or 6 solid pieces of cod and fries with coleslaw and a few buns. I'm sitting there disgusted at how someone can eat that many pieces and still feel okay. Plot twist. As he starts to cut up the first piece, he pauses, as if he were deep in thought and having an internal struggle. He then offers all his fish to a couple who just arrived and sat near him, and they happily accept. Then he separately ordered a grilled salmon with veggies, which was not part of the buffet at the time, so he paid twice. Great turnaround. Story 41. I once saw a little kid sneeze directly into one of the chicken dishes. He was the perfect height for his head to be under the protective glass and directly over the container. His dad saw him and gave him a slight tap on the head like, "Not cool, bro." Then they casually walked off to eat. All forms of buffet have been ruined for me since then. Story 42. I was in Las Vegas with two coworkers, and we went to the Wynn buffet. One coworker is a vegan, and the Wynn has a huge vegan section since Steve Wynn is a vegan. While we were eating, a couple came in and sat next to us. This was a skinny guy, fat girl couple, but not like normal skinny guy, fat girl, like 120 pounds guy, 400 plus Albi girl, way outside the normal range. They went to the dessert section, not a table. It's like a dessert room, and must have gotten one of all 50 desserts. They say there, and he hand-fed her all the dessert. He ate nothing, even though it cost him like $70 to get in. Then they left. He hand-fed. He probably 50 desserts before we were done eating. Story 43. I worked at a Sunday buffet in high school, late 90s. It was $7 a person. I could tell you some stories. We essentially charged them, brought drinks, then bussed the table. My favorite was the 400 pounds. Lady who would come in by herself, ask for 4 glasses of milk, and wave you down whenever she finished one for a refill. She would eat about 5 plates of our macaroni and cheese, probably the worst thing on the buffet. At some point, slam all 4 glasses of milk, then proceed to puke milk, cheese, and noodles all over the bathroom. She would then sit and drink milk and eat macaroni for another hour or two, then leave a handful of change for the tip. We all drew straws whenever she came in for who got to clean up the mess. One day she came in and I only gave her 1 milk. She said she wanted 4, and I assured her I would bring another one when she was finished with the first. She insisted that the rules say I get as much milk as I want. There were no posted rules. I refused and ended up getting written up for not being hospitable. From that point on, I would just drop a gallon of milk on her table every time she came in, which she usually finished, but refused to clean up the puke mess. Whenever my boss tried to get me to do it in her passive-aggressive way, I'd say, maybe we shouldn't offer unlimited milk refills if people are just going to puke it all over the bathroom every week. Story 44. Not an employee, but once went to Golden Corral with my brother and a friend of ours. My brother went to the bathroom and took an extra long crap. When we were leaving, the plumber was pulling into the parking lot. Story 45. Not an employee, but one time I was staying in this small hotel outside Venice that was very empty. They had a buffet breakfast, and I had the whole thing to myself for about 15 minutes until this Chinese family walk in. I don't take much notice of them, as I'm busy assembling my sausage mountain, but I couldn't help but notice that the family had gone up to the counter and started to pick up whole tubs of food, not small ones. They then sit back down at their table and start eating. I swear the small kid ate about 50 boiled eggs and way too many baked beans. Story 46. Once my husband took me out with some people from his lab to a local BBQ place's all-you-can-eat rib night. I don't like ribs, so I ordered off the menu, but everyone else got the ribs, and they decided to have a rib-eating contest. I don't remember how much the winner ate, but it was really impressive. While this group of people was snarfing ribs like a pack of starving wolves, a waiter came over with another plate and asked who needed more. A waiter who was departing replied, "Just throw them at the table, someone will eat them." It was one of the funniest things I ever heard. Story 47. Not employee, but growing up, I had this friend who always wanted to go to China Buffet. He drove me crazy, though, because he would fill his plate up with a bunch of stuff, take like 2 bites of everything, and then just get up and go get a plate of different stuff. Not so much gluttony, I guess, but it was just infuriating to me. Story 48. I was staying for a week at a high-end hotel in Jakarta where we were staging an event. As we were working in the ballroom setting up, we took all of our meals in the main dining room of the hotel, and over the course of the week, we got to know some of the servers. They all started whispering and giggling one morning, and when we asked them what was up, they told us about the Tai, rich major wife, who would be showing up that day for lunch and the spectacle she'd be making. It seems that they had an all-you-can-eat sushi buffet that they featured every week, and this Tai was infamous for her gluttony. Sure enough, one of the servers gave us the hi sign when she walked through the door. A fat lady dressed all in Hermes, Gucci, and Prada, topped with lacquered hair, slathered in makeup, and dripping in gold jewelry and attitude. The Tai put on quite a show, heaping several plates with sashimi and sushi, shoving the food into her mouth like she hadn't eaten for a week, chewing with her mouth open, snapping her fingers for the server's attention, and generally making an ostentatious pig of herself. It was quite the show. Sadly, it was before the days of YouTube and smartphones, but it was the most vivid memory I have from that show. Story 49. Not an employee, but I have an experience that is very relevant. I was enjoying a meal at an all-you-can-eat Sizzler buffet in Brisbane, Australia a few years ago. I went to the toilet and entered a stall, doing my business, when suddenly I heard these disgusting gagging and gargling sounds in the stall next to me, like someone was sticking their fingers down their throat. Grossed out, I left the stall and started washing my hands. As I was doing this, the stall door swung open, and out walked one of the most obese men I had ever seen. He was wearing an oversized shirt, which was ripped at the bottom. He had no cescorts on, and his mouth and hands were covered in vomit. Instead of washing his hands, he just walked straight out the toilet back into the restaurant. I followed him out and watched in utter disgust as he went straight to the buffet bar and started piling food on a plate, using his hands to touch everything. I went back to the table to tell my friends what had happened, and we all left the restaurant, but not before informing the staff what had happened, who apologized and told us that guy came in regularly. Story 50? Not Buffett per se, but back in my younger days, I worked at Baskin-Robbins, an ice cream chain store. People would come in with their kids and rack up a bill closing $50. As it goes, kids and scooped ice cream on cones doesn't go well. It was common for children to drop their ice cream and we'd simply get another scoop for them. You know, normal business policy. So this lady came in every Saturday and all three of her kids would end up dropping the cone with almost all the ice cream finished. The owner caught on to the scheme that the lady used to nod to her kids when to drop the cone. After like 2 months of this, the owner told them to use cups, and he won't be giving free scoops for empty broken cones being dropped. The lady went off the rails. Called 911, wrote letters to corporate, and she didn't rest until corporate sent an apology along with gift cards and ensured her that it's company policy to replace dropped ice cream. I worked there 2 summers, and when I left, she was still a customer, and she always did the same thing. With support from corporate, she had gotten bold, and every now and again, she'd purposefully drop her own ice cream or shake after finishing it more than 3/4 of the way. Story 51. There was a guy we called Six-Pan Man. He would go to the pizza buffet, slide an entire pizza on his plate, and sit down and eat it, then get up and do it again until he ate 6 whole pizzas. Story 52. A Chinese buffet in the UK that me and my friends frequently go to does fried bananas and syrup. One guy stacked a bowl full of them and then poured chicken noodle soup all over it. I was waiting behind him like the dam. I think he realized his mistake, but you pay if you leave any food as it's a small family business. I think he thought it was pancake rolls, like egg rolls. So he sat and ate it all. It looked disgusting. Story 53. I used to work at Whole Foods, and a woman came in with her small dog and puts it in the child part of her cart. She goes to the buffet section, and as she's looking, she starts to take small bits with her hands and gives it to her dog to sample. She continues letting the dog lick her hand clean of various foods and puts it back in to grab more from the open tray. Then she decides what she wants to eat and goes to get a box to fill it, but the dog started whining because she stopped feeding it. So she picked it up and straight put it on the counter to eat out of the tray like a bowl. It happened relatively quickly and no staff saw it, but a customer came up front and told us a woman had a dog too close to the food, and we said, okay, well, check, because service animals were common. Then we checked the security camera later and realized the sheer level of WTF going on all at once. All of the food was rotated out, and the lady's picture went on our gross offender wall. Story 54. Ryan's Steakhouse in a small crappy town in Southwest Christiansburg. We had regulars. These were families where even the preteens were over 200 pounds, the parents coming in at 300 to 400 pounds each. They come in and get a salad plate, a few dinner plates, and then a dessert plate, and then they start over. 4 ducking hours and 6 hours on Sundays. We had all-you-can-eat steak after 4 p.m., and the line would be 15 people deep at 3:45 yelling at us that their watches said 4 p.m., so they wanted steak. We would point at the big-ass clock and tell them sorry, but we go by that clock. When 4 p.m. finally hit, the steak cuts weren't big enough. Each cut per management was supposed to be a little bit bigger than the palm of our hands, maybe 6 ounces. But who cares? It's unlimited. No, that was not acceptable. The amount of rage we had to deal with was off the chain. These ducking dumpster gullets couldn't be inconvenienced with multiple trips. The quality wasn't great, but I will say we ran a clean kitchen. If something got dropped or came off the grill oven ducked up, we trashed it and the fruit was stupidly fresh. Story 55. I saw a huge fat guy take an entire prime rib at King's table. The guy carving it walked away for some reason, so this dude just stabs his fork in the huge slab of beef and puts it on his plate. They let him eat all he could, then banned him for life. Story 56. Not gluttony, but my dad took me to a Fur's cafeteria when I was a little kid. He told me to order a fur burger, and I did, but the girl at the counter was not amused. Fur burger is slang for pussy. Story 57. Once at a Golden Corral, a 400 lb plus woman whom I've never met saw me cutting the fat and gristle off my steak from across the aisle. She told me it was the best part and asked if she could have it. I was too stunned to do anything but give her my plate, and she ate the fat. Story 58. Oh wow, I'm late, but my dad once told me a great story in this vein. He had this weightlifting buddy who was so huge that his car leaned to the side where he'd wrecked the suspension with his sheer mass. So dad goes with this guy to an all-you-can-eat shrimp buffet. The guy starts harking down shrimp at an incredible pace without even bothering to de-shell them. After consuming a couple pounds of the shrimp, he looks stricken and excuses himself. Dad follows him outside to see him leaning against a lamppost, dry heaving. The man eventually regurgitates what Dad could only describe as a shrimp log. He basically puked up a compressed wad of shrimp shells, the way an owl pukes up a pellet of bones and fur after it eats a rat. When he was done, he wiped his mouth, lumbered back into the restaurant, and kept eating. Story 59. I'm not an employee, but I saw a man whom I now refer to as Cucumber Fence Man. At a stir-fry place, whatever you can fit in the little metal bowl, they will stir-fry with rice or noodles. This man used cucumbers around the edge of the bowl vertically to allow more meat to fit in the bowl, and when he got to the fry area, he told the man cooking to throw out the cucumbers as he does not want them. Simultaneously, my new hero and the most gluttonous thing I have ever witnessed. Story 60. Not an employee, but a patron. I once ate all the egg rolls at a Chinese buffet. To be clear, I don't mean all the egg rolls they had out at the time. I mean, I kept getting egg rolls until the restaurant ran out of egg roll materials. I estimated it at around 10,000 calories of egg rolls, maybe more. I was trying to go up a weight class, and there weren't that many vegetarian options, and I just got carried away. I wasn't a banana about it or anything. I would only take a few at a time to give other people a chance, then come back for more. Only nobody else seemed to be taking them. Apparently, while the rest of the world squared off over the limitless seafood, I had the whole kitchen's worth of egg rolls all to myself. It should have been enough. But whoa. When I saw the breadth of my domain, I wept, for there were no more egg rolls to conquer. Story 61. I made spiced molasses cookies for our St. Patrick's Day buffet. Well, we ran out of the first own, so I run to refill it. As soon as I put it down, this dude walks up and takes 15. Doesn't say a word, and then walks away. Ducking shocked me a little, and I just stood there looking at him sauntering away. Story 62. Not a buffet, but my restaurant does 25-cent wing night, and we have the track and field team from the local HS come in, and every week, this same goddamn kid orders the same thing, and it rings in like this. They request the same waitress, so she has it down now. 24 hot wings, hot, and then some. This kid will eat all 24 and then keeps ordering in waves of sixes, challenging himself on how much he can eat. Story 63. Not an employee, but I had a friend get kicked out of a Chinese buffet for eating so much ducking shrimp. He ate through like 2 trays, and when he asked if there was any more, the lady shouted at him, "No, there's no more shrimp in store. You eat like whale. You go home now." Story 64. A little late to the party, but I have a story. I was at a local Chinese buffet and sitting behind my family, and I was a Chinese family. They sat down right when we did. Now I'm not fluent in Mandarin, but I know a lot from classes. There was a little boy who wanted ice cream before his meal. The grandfather was yelling and smacking his hand, saying no. The boy started crying and wailing, so to shut him up, they said he could eat the ice cream first, but only if he ate it with chopsticks. Funniest thing, seeing a plump little Chinese kid eating a mound of ice cream with chopsticks. Story 65. I worked at a brunch buffet. There was this one guy who got nothing but a plate of pancakes and a bowl of butter. We are talking about a cereal-sized bowl full of butter. He had a spoon in one hand and a fork in the other. He would take a piece of pancake and put it in his mouth, and then take a hefty spoonful of butter and put it in his mouth. This was for 6 diner-sized pancake, and every bite was a spoon full of butter. Story 66. Ducking crab leg night at the casino buffet. The casino would buy cases upon cases of crab legs, then charge $27.99 for the buffet. Frozen to gourmet as fast as the steamers would go. People would wait in line for 2 hours to get a plate. Families would stand at the crab leg station waiting for the next dump refill from the kitchen. 1 plate per person per trip. Double and triple strollers, infants who couldn't roll over, were counted towards the 1 plate rule. Baby would get passed to the next family member. Bam, 2 plates. Of course, when eating 2 plates of crab legs at a time, one is supposed to throw half the shells under the table as far as they can. Mother duckers. Story 67. At the Shakey's buffet next to my work, there is this huge couple that goes in from time to time. They must weigh at least 400 pounds each. No exaggeration. 3 words: chicken skin buffet. If you look at their table, there will be a mountain of uneaten chicken. They pull of all the skin and leave the rest. I've seen the manager remind them that they have to eat what they get and not to be wasteful a couple of times now, but they don't give a duck. Between the two of them, I've seen them go through 20 PCS of chicken. They might actually eat 2 PCS and the rest is just harvested for its skin. Story 68. Not an employee, but I had a friend follow a group of us to a little Chinese buffet. They had shrimp on the buffet and the guy picked up the entire steamer tray and brought it back to the table. No crap, just like that episode of The Simpsons. Thought it was a joke and he proceeded to chow down on them, and to make sure they didn't take the tray back, he dumped a ton of sweet and sour sauce on all of them. Yes, he was fat, and he got banned from the place, which sadly wasn't his first restaurant. So many stories of this guy. So many sad, sad stories. Story 69. Not an employee, but I went on a date with a guy, and he made me go to the teppanyaki stand 4 times to get different kinds of foods for him when I told him that I am a vegetarian, so he thought he was eating my share. While we were waiting for the bus to go back on campus, he threw up behind a bin. Needless to say, we did asterisk, not asterisk, share a kiss goodbye. Story 70. I'm from Prince George, Canada. I've been away for years, but I have family there. Around 2001-ish, there was an incident where a homeless man bought a plate at buffet in town. It was a 24-hour buffet. Long story short, about 2 weeks later, the restaurant kicked him out, citing a new health code that restaurant patrons cannot be in the building longer than hours. Story 71. Not me, and not at an all-you-can-eat. But a friend of mine who worked in Kuwait as a physics teacher for a couple of years witnessed some strange things. One that stuck with him the most was this one kid who sat in a rubber ring at the beach, being fed chips fries by hand from his fully covered servant. This kid was shaped like a beach ball and would sit there being fed for hours on end, every day from the day my friend arrived in Kuwait till the day he left. Story 72. I used to be a waiter at one of those Vegas buffets. Usually, when you got those massive groups of Chinese tourists, you know there will be hell. The ginger beef was very popular, and I saw a man from those tour groups take 2 spoons from the big pot and put it on a plate. He left the plate behind and just took the pot. Story 73. A buffet I worked at served all-you-can-eat shrimp cocktail, $41.50 US. She had a plastic shopping bag under her table and kept dropping shrimp in it every time she went back to her seat. When she got up to leave, she hooked the bag in the front of her walker. She made it about halfway to the exit when the weight of the bag caused her walker to tip forward and she face-planted. Story 74. This is a sad one. Worked in a chicken finger and wing fast food place. Very skinny guy comes in with visible heroin tracks all over his arm. Over the course of an hour, he ate 19 chicken fingers, 10 wings, 21 ounces of fries, 5 pieces of toast, 8 pieces of celery, 6 ounces of sauce, and 6 cookies. He paid for it all with a gift card. Clearly, someone didn't want to give him cash. It was insane to watch and disheartening to think about. Story 75. Not an employee, but I saw a man get arrested at a Pizza Hut once. After eating what appeared to be about 5 plates of food, he asked for a to-go box and was refused one for obvious reasons. The argument escalated, and then he threw his plate on the floor. He then went to the buffet line, where he proceeded to scoop up handfuls of food and throw that on the floor as well. Gotta love Florida. Story 76. When I was 12, I was at a buffet restaurant with my mom and brother. We sat close to another family of a mother and 2 sons. When the sons were finished eating, I overheard her telling her boys to go to the bathroom and throw up the food so they could eat some more in order to get their money's worth. It made me so completely sad because you could tell by the boys' faces that they'd been through this before. Story 77. Non-employee Canadian here, went to an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet in Ottawa, capital of Canada. My 3 friends and I sat on a table and started eating slowly to enjoy our time in the food. Couple next to us has over 6 plates piled up on their table. 5 minutes later, the guy barfs in his empty water pitcher, calls the waiter to take it away, and continues eating. Absolutely horrifying. Story 78. Yet another non-employee here. At a Chinese buffet, the manager was yelling at this big guy he couldn't get anymore because he'd pay for one but eat for 4. Ducking hilarious. Story 79. $20 all-you-can-eat crab legs at a casino. A family a few tables over. They were getting piles of crab legs and putting the meat in Tupperware containers, not even trying to hide it, as if they thought they were the first people to think of this glorious plan. It kicked major ass seeing them get kicked out. Maybe not gluttony, but greed for sure. Story 80. Friend of mine ended up eating 47 pieces of sushi at all-you-can-eat Japanese place. Restaurant was small, and they had only one sushi chef on call at the time. After about 30 or so, Pieces' chef had this strange look on his face. He looked like he was full of hatred, confusion, and anger at the same time. Story 81. Not a buffet per se, but I saw a man in an electric wheelchair order a large pizza from a Sam's Club food court. He proceeded to fold the whole pizza in half and eat it in 5 bites. I'm still confused. Story 82. Not an employee, but 2 years ago I walked past an old country buffet, not far from a bookstore I was going to. I locked eyes through the window with a morbidly obese Hispanic man was using 2 spoons to shovel both cake and mashed potatoes into his face. I will never forget the frosting-covered chin hair. Story 83 was at an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet in New Jersey. They brought out the crab legs, and immediately 2 guys went up, took the whole tray, and brought it to their table. I'm not sure how they thought they'd get away with it because 3 other vultures saw it and immediately told the crew there. People love those crab legs. Story 84. My GF used to work at a pizza buffet. They had a grossly obese regular that would come in and order a pitcher of soda for herself and then gorge. She would then go to the bathroom for a lengthy amount of time, then go back and eat more. Story 85. I was at a small local buffet in my hometown once, and I watched as a kid stuck his mouth around the nozzle of the soft serve machine and mainlined a mouthful. Then he licked it clean, walked off, and then people kept filling up their bowls. So gross. Story 86. Friend worked at a Chinese buffet. They ran out of crab legs. But this obese woman was very upset. She demanded they bring out the discarded crab leg shells so she could chew and suck on them. They did not meet her request. She threw a fit, and police were called. Story 87. A friend of mine once noticed the guy put out a brand new lasagna, so he went over and scooped all the cheese off the top of the entire thing and ate it. He didn't feel very good after that. Story 88. I'm late as duck to this, so I'm sure it will be buried. But I once watched a guy eat like 6 huge plates of nothing but cottage cheese with croutons on top of it. He ate probably a gallon of cottage cheese and then nothing else. Story 89. Was once dining at a Mongolian barbecue buffet kind of place and watched this dude destroy plate after plate of nothing but black beans and andouille sausage. Would hate to be his roommate. Story 90. Not an employee, but a diner at an all-you-can-eat sushi restaurant. 2 guys pile their plates sky high with rolls, eat just the fish, and throw the rest of the roll away, then go back for more. They were asked to leave. Story 91. Some dude just picked up the ducking tub of mashed potatoes. No gravy or anything. Took it to his table, ate the entire thing, paid, and left. I cooked those mashed potatoes. There was like almost 100 potatoes in that tub. Story 92. I went to school with a guy whose family ran a Golden Corral. There was a guy who would come in every week and eat nothing but the tops of muffins until he puked.